Hello, everyone. Welcome to our new podcast today. We have a very special guest, all the way from Ahmedabad, a big star urban designer coming all the way from there to Mumbai, and we are so happy to have him. We're talking about Niki Shah. He's director of urban design at HCP, and all the amazing work that HCP is doing in urban design, urbanism all over the country. Small projects like Central Vista and
Very small.
very small, not that
India
that
is
big.
a big country, very small interventions.
But yeah, we jokes apart, we're really glad to have him on our podcast, and this is going to be a fun next hour over here, and we're hoping to have a lot more conversations about urban design, about practice. So welcome, Nikki.
Thank you.
Yay, welcome.
Thank you, all of you. Mahesh, Afras, Mansi, thanks for having me here. I think it's wonderful to be here. As I said, three of you together, all the biggies of the urban design of Bombay. So I'm glad to be here.
Great. So it's been an interesting conversation. We've been trying to have Nikki for the last few months, and finally he's here in Mumbai. Would like to kind of open with a conversation with him about. Everybody knows that he has been there with HCP for quite some time.
It's 23 years now.
23.
Right.
Yeah.
But I would like to know, and everybody in the audience also would like to know, how has your journey been, being an architect to an urban designer to leading so many different projects at HCP and executing them, implementing them, big master plans, all kinds of different kind of urban design projects all around the country. Can you just tell a little bit about your journey?
Sure. Well, my architecture was joining in architecture was in a very story because when I was in 10th, I had my cousin appeared for the entrance exam, and I was good in all this creative works and everything. So he said, "Can you help me?" So then I got to get an introduction of the architecture field. So I was in a 10th vacation so I helped him. Unfortunately, he didn't get in, but that stayed in me. So then I went to the 11, 12, which is a rigor and the hectic years of schooling. But eventually I get into the architecture. So that was good. I did from MS University of Baroda, one of the good school in the country. We had only limited school in the state actually at that time, only 4 of them. Now we have 40 probably in the state,
Yeah.
but 4 of them, and SET being one, MSU and Vidyanagar, Surat. So that is the story. So architecture was like usual architecture. Immediately after architecture, I joined HCP. I think one of my senior used to work in EPC. EPC was a sister company who used to do a lot of non-profit planning projects at that time because planning profession was not there in terms of professional. So
Yeah.
the government didn't hire planners to do the professional work because they used to do in-house. And at one point it changed. So now we have planning professionals as a consultancy in our office also. So that was it. And then I joined HCP 2002. I told Vimal that I'll be here for 2 years, as we say. Like all young architects, it's like 2 years is good enough.
2 years is enough.
But then the 4 years went away like anything, a lot of hard work. But I think what HCP's the philosophy of the whole being grounded, being problem solving and keeping to the point, very, very surgical as you mentioned in terms of how do you progress and solve the problems of anything, be it in architecture or any particular types of project. That kept me grounded. And I worked on the IIM extension, which was the Louis Kahn campus, the new campus coming up at that time, and I worked extensively on that. I was then progressed in that also. So that actually gave me very foundational level expertise and the experience, which made me think eventually. And then we were doing a couple of smaller, there was no urban design projects per se, but we did one project which is a Kankaria lake front. It's a historical lake, even older than Ahmedabad. We were assigned to do a transformation for that project. So one of my colleagues used to work, he was an architect, I helped him. And eventually realized that the urban design for the country, planning urban design is the way you can contribute on a large scale and change the scape of the country. So that's broad idea. And fortunately, I also got an admission in the top university at that time, TU Delft in Netherlands. And so I went for my masters for 2.5 years, came back, and not looking back after that. It's been 18 years since my return on that, and I've been doing very slow start, I would say, a very limited project in urban design, because not everybody understood why this is necessary. Now it is a talk of town, actually. The entire country is geared up for the urban design and the planning.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think then slowly, one by one project, two project, different types of problems we encountered, our team grew, the problem scale changed. One being consistent for last 20 years is the riverfront in Ahmedabad is going on for 25 years. It's finished partly, our work is finished. But that's consistent, where it gave me an opportunity to see through the project from very beginning all the way to the really a small scale placemaking, construction aspects and all that. So that gave me the entire, and then many similar projects across. So that's the product journey.
Nice.
Great. No, absolutely what you said. When we StudioPOD started our practice 12 years back, not many forms were there, but HCP has always been there doing a lot of architecture initially, and planning. A lot of things happen in the background, and nobody knows which firm is doing what. But it was SCP who brought to the fore a lot of these very kind of great Indian case studies and precedents of urban design projects. And we always thought, how would kind of, as an aspiring urban design firm to begin with, how does that kind of large kind of scale projects, when you work on them, in a setup which is already established, right, with HCP, the urbanism studio has been growing and thriving the way you guys have been working on it. What's the kind of challenges you faced to kind of grow that practice more and see how do you pitch for those kind of projects, and within the setup that you were, how challenging and what kind of things happened in the background?
Yeah, it's complex, I think, issues as we were growing up in the 15, 20 years ago. Urban design was not talked about, so nobody understood. So convincing somebody that this is something at this scale can be transformed, that was a bigger. But I think the whole experience of 40 years of architecture, where ultimately you convince somebody to do a project, either it's a house or a large scale campus or something.
Right.
The way you do it, very practically solving a problem. So you're saying this is your problem and this is how it should be done. So that's a very simple answer. So how simply you put the solution across the people who are the stakeholders, basically, that gives the clarity on that. And of course, the bits and pieces of experience in the planning and urban design, one of the first, I would say, is that the complete street development in Ahmedabad was 95-96, which was Vimal's initial one. That lasted the impression also that this is the firm who does that. A lot of planning work, a lot of non-profit planning work, which also put a hold on, and that gave us the opportunity to understand how the government functions. So that we catched up very fast, and all our teams and the younger guys get to work with the government, which ultimately tells you that this is how you should deal with it.
Right.
So the philosophy remained what the architecture practice used to do in the planning, urban design, landscape throughout. So that was the beginning part. Another big challenge we face is finding how do you transfer this design of the solutions to the site, I mean the construction aspects. In building you have good contractors because people have experience. But in urban design, dealing with an urban space, live streets, live area where you have to work around the solution, how to execute few things and keeping the quality, that was a big challenge. So again, because we have a team of people who looks after construction aspects, the robustness of detail in the philosophy of architecture, again, that also continued. So a lot of fundamentals of how the building construction works helps. So I think it's for everybody, so including me. So because I knew how to design and detail out and oversee the building construction aspects, that helped me eventually to make sure that, yeah, we have grand ideas, but how do you distill down to make sure that it gets to realize
Right.
on the ground also. And how because ultimately it's that.
Yeah.
Ultimately it's all brick beds and bones and concrete and the stones and everything. So ultimately the engineers who are going to execute needs to be convinced of your grand ideas and how well you can tell them, okay, this is what it is, and they are okay with that. So that's the fundamental of that. There are many challenges, of
Yeah,
course, in
yeah,
terms of
yeah.
the cost and the finance. There were issues like there are incidents with why you need so much cost, for example. Why are you asking so much? But then you have to convince. Okay, this is the example you are asking us to do. Because benchmarking happens. You have to convince client by showing something, okay, this is what you will get. Now, if you want to get this is actually cost like this. This is what you will get it because of the Indian condition, the way it's designed. So that's the aspects in terms of the how do you manage and how do you deal with the government entity. And I think sometimes having a transparency in dealing with it, telling the right thing to anybody, either it's a big government entity or a local body or something, that actually keeps the impression for a long period of time, because ultimately they will accept because it's technically correct
Right.
and the right solution. So that's how it is. And of course, urban design is an experiment. In Indian context, we don't have many urban design successful projects, or we don't have urban design per se. Britishers did last a lot of urban design, but as an Indian, we haven't. We do have local space which is made up by people. We made these places, but not designed urban spaces. So that is something which is experimental. But then we are Indians, we are rooted here. So more you understand the context and the culture, you will find and figure it out.
Let me step back a little to your previous conversation. What inspired you to move back once you had gone to Delhi?
Two aspects. One was, I think it was very clear that India is the country where a lot of potential is there. So you could see already how the country is gearing up for this 21st century. And of course, my seniors have told me because they've come back, and my family was here, and I come with a very low, medium family financially also. So there was no aspiration at one point that I'll do for the studies and everything. Because architecture, I was happy.
Yeah.
5 years invested, and I said, okay, I'm going to design buildings, I'm going to design furniture, I'm going to do this and do that. There are too many things. My inclination was in the furniture design, product design, and all of that. So it's all range of what is a design. That's what I want to keep doing, that and make something, rather than just think out loud.
So then what inspired you to take this big bold step of no, I'm going to go to one of the best institutes for doing my master's in urban design?
So there are, I think, we're fortunate to have good people around. Because I was in HCP, I got to meet a lot of people. So when I was doing the admission process and everything, some of the people I knew, there was a guy called Azhar, he's a historian. He wrote a book on something. So we get along well and we talk about few things. And he had some experience on this university. It was not so famous at that time. It was an offbeat university.
Yeah.
Because everybody goes to US,
Yeah.
it's like yahan pe Berkeley and all of that. So I did apply everywhere, in US and UK and but the Delft, he said, is the right place for you. And then a lot of people told me, experience who were in Europe, that if you want to study urban design and really understand how these things are done, Europe is a place. If you go to university in Europe, then you have enabled yourself the vast palette of cultures and the countries and the urban spaces and everything. You could travel around. And this university is actually very good. It's a very technically grounded university. I knew a couple of people, Dutch people at that time, so they also told me. So that was and I got in, and
Nice.
that was a one very simple choice. That way, there was no other confusion about it. So that was the idea. Fortunately, at that time, I was doing good, so it was funded by my practice.
Oh, really?
The masters. So
Nice.
that was also one of the reasons. It's not something is a negative or that way, but it was something. I said, I have something to look forward now
Nice.
back to the country. And when I came back, very first day, I geared up. Let's do urban design, and so it was like that. It was
This is excellent.
There was
Nice.
no complex decision making processing. It was very gut feeling actually.
So, what do you think has been the challenge after you came back in like executing large urban design projects and between theory and practice? Because when you come back as a student, you are also
Yeah.
going back to theory a lot, right? And
That's
then you
true.
come back to practice. So, what do you think has been the one dilemma that you dealt with after coming back, or maybe you still deal with it? I know we do still many times. So,
But I
just
think
want to
we-
understand from you.
What happened that because of the experience already, so the mind was trained in certain fashion. How do you translate certain things in a certain manner? How you go about it. So there are steps and the processes, and it's not individual's choice. There are collective. There are a lot of people around whom you debate and discuss and everything. So that was the whole idea. So it's not that we. Fortunately, I think it's as part of the education or something. You have this reference of European countries and the global practices and everything, but it never overpowered that it has to be translated directly in the Indian context. But I think it was the teaching and the experiences of the whatever the travel we've done is how do you see a place for that particular context?
Yeah.
And like in good urban design school or a class, it been told you that how do you think about it. So I think this whole problem solving exercise remain ingrained in the larger sense. So we do think from the philosophical level when we start doing something. So we start with a top diagram or a very top vision, okay, how this has to be seen in a very simplistic manner. Okay, this is the big thing.
Yeah.
Then you distill down. We know how to break the problems. So that's
The process
the
is
process of
involved.
that, and then you go through that. You go through that. Bring right people into who can help you think further if there are experts needed. So that's the process. I think
Yeah.
it's meant for any projects or
Yeah.
any scale of work which we do, either institutions or urban space or planning. We've always brought somebody who can steer you or guide you and
Yeah.
put a
Right.
different perspective to it, basically.
Correct.
So there is always that philosophical or the ideological issues that in Indian cities, why can Indian cities be at scale? Yeah, you start with that question on, and you want to push that envelope because we as an Indian, as a country, as a pool of cities, we don't know what we want eventually.
Yeah. And we
So-
don't know what potential we
Right,
have.
what potentials
obviously.
we have. So they're nudging them in a smaller manner and experiencing a smaller interventions help us think, yeah, this is the way. So let's push the envelope. Be Indian, be grounded. Do not be extravagant because we talk about economic aspects and the financial aspects and how people functions, crowd and all of that. So keeping that in mind, it is never going to be a European plaza or European public
Yeah.
space.
Yeah.
It's Indian.
Correct.
So this is what it is. So up to certain level, you will have control as a design. After that, let the people
Let the
manage this.
people be. Yeah, true.
Manage this.
I think it's so important because even for us, whether it's a 3-month project process or a project or a 5-year project, following the process, a lot of the times you have to put the processes in because no RFP or ever will tell you to zoom out and zoom in, and no matter how much time you have to go through that process internally to come up with a good outcome. So yeah, I think I completely agree with you.
And also, I think there are many, as a country, we don't have set systems on many things. So I don't think we have. Now we have because there are people who help government,
Yeah.
the local body who
They
can
can-
formulate the problem themselves rather than relying on the consultants. Initially, it was like that something comes up and say, this is something we want to do. Now, what needs to be done is something we have to figure it out. So you think about
How do you
from the
get
program to the vision to how do you translate and then convince or convey that this is the possibility, and then it might click and click.
True.
I remember one of the initial, I think in the first year only when I came back 2008, there was another Central Vista, not the Delhi one, but the Gandhinagar one. Gandhinagar is a planned city in Gujarat, it's a capital. They have a similar, it was designed based on that Washington Mall or Delhi Rajpath with the Sachivalaya at one point, and there's nothing else. So the master plan was done in 60s but never materialized fully. So we've been asked to come up with something where they can revamp this area because they wanted to upgrade Gandhinagar from multiple, because it's a sleepy town that way. So CM then told us to figure it out what can be done. So I remember very first exercise was a very simple, like what we do it in the college, in universities, illustrative diagrams, single line diagram, couple of slides saying that this is what it is and this is how it can be. With a broader vision, this is how it should be done. And it has a whole philosophy around of the Indianness, how you see the nodes, vistas, story of a Taj Mahal, visual connections, because it's an axial plan city, so you will figure it out how to rely on that methods. So that was done, and we were being skeptical how people will take it. So we've been in that restrained aspects, but it's other around. The CM told us, no, why are you thinking small? Make it bigger. It's as simple as that. So then we kind of opened up the whole aspects of the how it can be actually transformed. So then it actually built in a couple of years. So it got done, and now that place has actually transformed. It has become an international destination because a lot of events happens. So it has changed completely. It was a huge park as a part of the proposal, which was a very small park in the beginning to start with. So it also changes how you become more confident that now you can push the envelope.
True.
You can be a little mega about it sometimes. Then make sure that it's doable. We don't want to create a situation where you paint a pretty picture,
but it's
not
possible.
doable.
Yeah.
We want to paint a picture which is actually doable. That's the philosophy. So I will come to the point, if we come across that point, how we have actually come up with a technique of visualizing Indian cities. And earlier, all this visual, the software limitations and the skill and way we think, it's all European, foreign looking people, and the place is glossy and everything. But then we realized it's not going to sell it. People are not going to agree on it.
They won't relate to it.
If you don't see an Indianness to that. So we have to change the way we communicate. Because the 3D visual is the medium where people can communicate. These drawings are for us.
It's a very special HCP kind of visualization.
It has
the
evolved.
entourage and everything. Which is
so
there.
now it has everything. All the Indian, depends on the context. If you have a project in Chennai or Rajasthan, you will have a people who belongs to that particular place. And the nuances of monkey, the dog, or the leaf, all of that details are part of what that place eventually will make it. So that has helped us a lot, convincing people and being real about it, rather than real with the good, good push. Yeah, you can aspire to this place also as an Indian. And that was the whole idea. And it has changed. I think the life of my experience of seeing Sabarmati Riverfront, I use it as a user or as a designer. People have come up with the new habits. Nobody in the city used to go and do a jogging and cycling and the walk and everything, except there are a few gardens, not a large amount of people. Now it's part of their habit. So it changes people's lives, actually. We don't realize it how good we do sometimes.
That's
but that's
true.
something
People will adapt to it.
And without
ways
even
you can't
realizing, this is always there, no? It feels like that.
Part of their lifestyle.
Part of the lifestyle. So it's always there. So that is how it is.
It's very interesting way you put the whole thought process, right? The vision making is something which is extremely crucial when you urban design exercise.
It is
and then convincing, whether it's a minister or IS or a municipal engineer, to kind of get that through, and because you have that powerful storytelling which is there, right? Which sets the tone for such kind of a large exercise, especially with the government authorities when you deal with. It's a very important kind of a communication tool to kind of ensure that when you see what you see is not just like a. We also face this in the very beginning a lot, that after some international ideas है यहाँ पे इंडिया में नहीं चलेंगे.
आप सब बाहर से पढ़ के आए हो.
यहाँ पे नहीं चलेंगे.
We had that. I remember because when you make a first presentation, I'm going to convince somebody that this is a right program. Getting a program right is like you to show a reference photo.
Never any
earlier, because we have been there, so ये plaza का photo, या ये waterfront and this street, and I think then they do have reacted. This is a foreign. We can't adapt that. That's why that whole visual style which we evolve is actually as a repercussions to that argument also. Right. So
That's good. I think we've also, through our limited work experience, we've realized that when we start something as a project, we have some things and ideas in mind, but when people start using it and they appropriate the space in their own way, we did this with one machan in Pune.
Yeah.
We did not realize that it would become a sunset point destination, which people started collecting there for sunsets, which we did not think at that point of time was going to happen when we were thinking about it. We thought it would be a place where you go up and you'll be able to see the park, but then people sort of develop a liking or a activity around some piece of infrastructure that you've created. And then it becomes people's place.
Yeah.
It becomes what? Yeah.
People have to own it eventually and be
And
flexible.
they make the place then.
Yeah.
So
They
it
make
is
the
what
place.
is incredible about India is
Yeah.
that if you do something really nice in our cities or even something small, even if it is smaller, there would be people who would come and embrace it in their own way.
Yeah.
They'll make it their own, which is, I think, something really special about our city.
And it's also a little bit of I think it's the happiest time for an urban designer when you go there and you're like, oh wow, these people are using it in a way that even I didn't imagine. Like we just inaugurated a park in Valpoi, Goa, and the first day there were 150 kids in like the smallest play area, and all the parents are like, यहाँ पे एक घंटे तक park नहीं है.
While they used to go to Panji,
Yeah, they would go to
an
Panji.
hour and a half.
And there are all these kids. I remember the first time we opened the door, there were all these kids. They're just waiting. खुल गया क्या? Can we come in? And you know, for us it was like, oh, it's a small park, but it's not a small park. It's such a big park for the town, right? And anything you do, whether it's the vista or a master plan, or like you're saying, it comes down to the details. And if the details are not right, then that user will feel it first. So yeah, I completely agree with you that
What is also
in the
one
details.
thing that inspired us to come back was to see that there was this India that was changing.
Yeah,
They were asking for
Yes.
a little more. They were asking
for better quality.
They were asking for, at least us as youth, we felt that I see I can feel a wind of change.
Yeah.
Right? There is,
And
but
to
that was,
stop India from making same mistakes that the world has made,
Of course.
and how do you
And I
play
think
that
one of the
little
reason
role?
is, I think, if you start from the education standard to people financial ability to travel abroad, more and more people are traveling.
Yeah.
Which has become part of the last 50 years, if you see, 20 years, not that much. Now everybody can, because
Yeah,
of the affordability to many
Absolutely.
things in terms of the travel or anything. And even our closest destination, you go to Dubai or Singapore or something, it changes the perspective of people. And they may come back. They come back with something.
यहाँ क्यों नहीं है?
हाँ, यहाँ पे क्यों नहीं?
continue also.
For me, like you are saying, how these kids will own a park or anything, a small activity which happens as a part of their daily routine, not something which is curated, is something is the
Real kick.
real
kick,
in
yeah.
it. I've designed a park, though it's part of the larger Sabarmati Riverfront Development Project, but there was a small park which was added as a. We feel it's a residual space. It's very tiny, but it was like a 800 kilometer long tiny park. And the idea was, let's make a children park because a lot
800
of
meters.
800 meters.
Yeah.
800 meters, sorry.
Yeah.
Kilometer.
You say tiny 800
We're talking different levels.
No. Listen, I'm saying it's a frame angle because for us it's tiny because we had another bigger
larger park.
This was like 1/10 of it. The Sujata designer 5 times bigger than this one.
Yeah.
So I think it's a tiny park. Then I started sketching, and me and Bimal and everybody was discussing, and the way eventually worked out, it's a children park. Let's keep a children oriented. Now it's a very simple park. It has a lawn, it has a promenade. In the center, we put a fountain, which is that floor fountain, the circular steps with the steps around, so parents and the families can sit. And there are some fountain, like 30 fountain nozzles inside. Every evening, you see toddler playing. And I get my, when I saw the first time when it would open and I got a picture,
Oh,
and it was
it's
a sunset.
the best feeling,
It was a
right?
sunset, as you're saying, how that sun makes
Yeah.
our life and the water. And then your sunset view, I said, is this the park, same park we've designed? And then I went and I was like, oh my God. Then I keep bringing every time any students wants to visit or something, if we organize, and that's a park I take them. Because it's a very simple solution. Nothing, no fancy patterns, nothing. It's a series of lawns, plaza, toilet blocks, food courts, and free space for people to go around, some children play area. So that's how it is. There's another transformating way we didn't realize how successful this becomes is one of the waterfront we did in south of Gujarat. It's a Daman, Kola city, Union Territory. It's a 13 kilometer. We were supposed to do the master plan, but then Daman is a beach, but you have a sunset naturally available, but it's not a place where people hang out or would go. In the city, or some tourists will go. It's a touristic town that way, Portuguese reference. It's a very simple intervention of building a promenade and a street, but the promenade with a bit of some elements inside, which contextualized to the Portuguese or Goan architecture that way, and that changed everything. And now you see a simple intervention of having a 20 feet wide walkway and a street and a parking and lighting, trees and those frames. Entire 13 kilometer of the waterfront transformed. Now it has become a social media star. That place has become social media star. There are dedicated Instagram handles for Daman lovers, and in that you have everyday beautiful reels coming, and it's like how people take it, embrace it. That's what it is. And once that is understood, I think we know how we have cracked the urban issues.
I think, one of the things that also comes with good execution, I think, is the level of consultancy. I just want to pick your brain a little bit on what do you think, because rigor, grit, these are all things that come in. But a lot of people, we have faced this being a younger urban design firm, is that we always have to bring the level of consultancy up. And we have to also change the mindset of people of looking at an Indian firm not as somebody's back office or, so I just want to understand if you faced any challenges of if you think, your 5 things that Indian consultancy firms must do, especially in urban design, must have, like your mantras for.
See, this whole valuing the Indian practice or not valuing Indian practice is still there.
Yeah, so it's very much. We face
even
it.
Day in out.
Though I'm part of HCP, but being HCP, as a HCP as an entity with the 65 years of the
legacy of the whole.
It's still there.
They still also get thing that okay, foreigner ko late hain.
It's so annoying.
So, but I think based on the experience and sometimes it's inevitable. So people would want a different vision rather than an Indian vision or somebody else. Let them, I think.
No, I think that's fine.
It's okay. I think if it's working, it's fine. It's not a big deal. But I think as a practice, either it is a young practice or a year-old practice or 50-year-old practice, we need to maintain certain standards. We should give up on the practices sometimes, on the chalega, fast kar dete hain, something. Yeah, we have to adapt. There are certain projects, we have certain way of working with so many people and process of going consultancy, cross verifications, third party evaluation and all of that. By doing so, using the technology and the speed of whatever we can help with, taking decisions faster or figuring out how to be a better communicator, in that case, we did change that process as a practice to deliver faster. But the standard of design or the deliverables or the construction quality, integrity remains. Or maybe you've notched up probably by doing so because we became more confident that we could do it actually. So I think in the country, in the urban sector, of course a lot of practices will be needed. It's a huge country, a complex, diverse problems. Not few firms, I think many firms. So I think from the youngest fresh graduate who can actually has a neck of it to doing it and as a gut to do in this sector, yes, I think, and then the old practices, I think there are many in the country. I think keeping the Indian context and the future of India central I think that will guide us, I think, overall. Keep that in mind rather than give in.
Yeah.
Yeah, there'll be issue, there'll be contextualization, there'll be something needs to be done. So you have to agree on few things, otherwise it won't get done. But within that parameters and the limitations also, if you can achieve the best ones, I think it will change the way you do it. And it's all progressive. I don't think there is a set standard of anything. Okay, this is what the benchmark we need to achieve. Every single task or every single intervention is a notch up, probably is what we have to keep in mind.
Yeah.
We all do it. Every day we figure it out.
Yeah.
We sit and figure out, okay, what improvements we can do from the practice which we have done already.
Yeah.
And
we are also, I think, you are also setting benchmarks for so many other places now. I feel India, with a lot of good practices, good projects coming up, we are also showing the world. And we went for a small seminar and we had people from Indonesia. We are also facing similar street issues.
Yeah.
And we would like to learn, how do we make good streets? How do you work within that system? So I feel like the best practices here are also influencing. Now we are at that level where we are also influencing a lot of other countries in a very similar situation. So we hope we are in their deck of reference images someday. And we know you are, but for us it's an aspiration to be there.
You guys are doing amazing work. I think it's getting it done on the ground is the best thing, irrespective of the size of the project. It doesn't matter actually. Getting it done and a good quality, I think that's the top. I think we should focus on that.
That's true.
As a part of it. But we also learn hard way. Every project is a learning. So what recently we started, just to make sure that we also don't make mistakes, because urban spaces are hard to get in. I mean, to capture. Like, how do you find that essence of people or users and everything? Sometimes the place already exists, and you want to change it. How will people adapt? So we started doing this whole post-occupancy studies in the recent years, where we go back. We used to do. I remember in IIM. I would go back 20 years back. So first time the whole campus was done. I'll digress a bit. 2 dormitories were built, so with some 100 students, I would say. Yeah, so 2 blocks are done. The rest of them are under construction. But there were 2 blocks were 6 months delivered, and people started occupying it. So I remember a couple of us, I think Bimal was also there. We went for 2 hours. We asked everybody, students, and the caretaker and the cleaner and all of that, what the problem you find, so we can improve the next dormitory. So there were like hostels, the drying clothes is the problem. The toilets, the ventilations, lights, the many fundamental life feedback from the users, as simple as that. Now imagine an urban space where thousands of people are using it, not the same people. Every day there are new people actually. So we started understanding the Central Vista project or a street project. We just go back and understand how people are using it. So we ask questions, or we just look at the space ourselves, take pictures, observe, say where the problem is. Is the dustbin working well, or the bench working well or not? So that was the idea. So every project has that, and now we have become a part of the system that we will go back after, depends on the project trajectory. Some projects are 10-year-old. So we have, I think recently only we discussed a 10-year-old project where one of the urban space in a very small town, it was a canal front development, a typical irrigation canal transformed into a public space. 10 years down the line, so let's go back and review it. Maybe we can't do anything for that place, but we can use the whatever mistakes we might have made, or something is not working, we can always improve in the next similar task.
Nice.
Yeah, mistakes are, I don't think if you tell them is a mistakes, or it's just how it is.
It's learning curve.
It's a learning curve, and because we have thought through, so it's not something they've technically missed, or it was by mistake it was done. Red karna tha lekin blue ho gaya. It's not a mistake like that. But it's something which is, there is no way to find it if it's right or not.
No, and it has to keep evolving, right? Because otherwise you just be stagnant in time. So
also the project also evolves with the users around as well, right? And it anticipates something else when you do it, but because of the whatever the success or whatever the project is, it draws more different kind of users than what was anticipated at that time.
Yeah, and the new problems.
The new problems around with
See,
it.
I've always, we in a lot of discussion, we say, okay, we as an urban designer, we see a problem in the existing situation, and you want to solve that. You solve that, but that new thing will bring new problems, different sets of problems with the new users and the different how because people are going to change, use that place differently. So there'll be new sets of problems. So sometimes you anticipate, sometimes you don't. So that's how. So one project say next project is another project is what going to happen.
We've when we started working, we thought we'd be a pure urban design practice, and we stayed away from architecture because when we were starting young, we were offered these villas and small buildings and things like that, which we had to take a stand and say that we will digress from our agenda if we start diluting the core philosophy why we started StudioPOD. But eventually when we realized that you need to make urban design palpable and almost tangible to people, it became super important that we execute some parts of our master plan, and that's how we sort of went towards landscape urbanism.
Right.
But what do you think is the role of architecture that has played as a discipline at HCP, and having now establishing a landscape discipline also? Do you think we constantly have this back and forth in our discussions of whether we should take up architecture, whether we should be doing some buildings, whether we should be. Do you think it's really important to I don't know the answer, and we actually do. Yeah, we don't know the answer. But has architecture influenced a lot of urban design? And in your
I'll just add one more twist to that question because it all sounds rosy when things are successful in an urban design project or whatever spaces are made, but also it's a very kind of a gritty process. The finances of a project are not really viable, especially when you're starting as an urban design firm. You want to make yourself kind of financially viable as well, right, as a firm. So how do you see that mix as well? Because how do you balance it out?
So I think it's because HCP was architecture first, right? We started many decades with architecture practice, and Hasnubai extensively worked on pure architecture projects. There were efforts in between, but to think it Indian, think it global, make it society, but make the society better. And all that is part of the philosophy. After liberalization, planning of Indian cities came, like we started talking about it and nudging small places where you can do something. So initially there are interventions like, or maybe a opportunity, or you can say a need of an hour, earthquake in Bhuj devastated the old town, which was an opportunity, a planning opportunity. So kind of we were there because we were already helping a local body for that. So that was but they're all not really lucrative in terms of the finance. So I think having for the HCP balancing different kinds of projects, private projects to, we don't do houses and villas anymore. We used to, but because it's unnecessary drain in the whole, except there are families and the friends. Otherwise we are on the institutionals or the corporate sectors, industries, where the pace of the project is faster. Amount of resources you need in terms of the man hours is lesser relatively compared to the urban. Otherwise, whatever is needed in that also. And it also balances out the financing. So as a practice, because we have invested on urban sector as a non-profit at one point. We still do, where the certain projects are just for the project. Okay, we have to do it. It's not financially profitable, or maybe at par, not profitable professionally. So what you guys are doing is actually a big task, and it's very brave, I would say, which I told you many years ago also, that it's a very brave to be in this. But I think it's that focused, as you're saying, makes us more stronger. When you are focused, more you digress and start doing the interiors or the bungalows or the architecture, it actually become more lucrative, and your mind goes there because it's a short-term achievement. Urban design is a long-term achievement. Your gratification, longest year you can spend. I am currently, there are projects going on which dated 10 years back. Like 10 years just went by and we are still here. But we are in a good stage. That satisfaction comes. But I think focusing, so that's why we have in the practice also 2 studios. So we all integrated, we are balancing whatever needed, we are all focused. We have dedicated effort for the urbanism and the architecture. It's not divided, yet focused, I would say. So I had also my share of, I told Vimal I want to do architecture, I want to design buildings, because that whole aspects of that. But urban design brings a lot of design aspects.
Right.
Within that you have buildings to design also.
Right.
True.
You have furniture to design. So that suffices the whole design. What do you call Kida of the...
There's a lot of
detailing part of it. That's I enjoy a lot. Because ultimately, either you do planning or you do urban design or grand ideas. If you are opportunity to bring down to the constructing aspects, the detailing and how safe that place is, how durable that is, it's all come down to that. That's all architecture. We had the legacy of it. Let's build on it. So that's how it has helped. And more focus on researching that part. So improving the standards of the Indian public space by changing the quality of material or the specification of the materials has helped a lot. Because it's going to last long.
The durability of it has
I remember I used to use the thinnest possible stone available in the market. We call it papad. But now we have a proper one. Like a kaju katri, I would say. Not a papad. So
I think
so that is a, I think this kind of small changes also helps the quality of public space in a
True.
Nobody would know that these changes have happened.
True.
Only you would know.
It's true.
In a way, but it changes tremendously. Definitely.
It takes immense patience, perseverance to see through these changes, right? Which is where the profession of urban design becomes so much more challenging, and it becomes also rewarding at times. At some days, like probably 5 days in the year, we are super excited.
Super high.
Super
with
high.
like with the happiness of look what we've done.
And 360 days in the year is tough to sort of get back to what we were doing, the grind, and saying, you know what, we need to wake up and
the highs and the lows.
I think it's not tough, but it is like Meko aana hai kal, like I have to do this. There's no other way. But there are 5 days when you're like, oh, I've done this, I'm so happy, I'm floating in the sky.
We have this two stage of, we have recently also, but we were doing some exercise, short-term exercise for a week. So it was a very visioning exercise. So what you do is to close yourself in a room, in a space, and then you constantly think about that. Nothing else matters. Like the world is gone and this is the only thing. You make sketch and you think about ideas and you keep drawing, and in a week you have something. In the life of an urban designer, you have that often. Depends on the task you get. Depends on the scale of the project. You might have few hours or you might have few days where you're in that mode where you feel comfortable yourself. Okay? You are thinking about urban design. What follows is many years of rigor. But if you, like you're saying, if you made up your mind, okay, nah, this is, because ultimately I know what's going to come in the future. If you stick to it, and every day you come, this needs to be done, the problem needs to be solved, this fight needs to be done, you have to argue with the silly contractor or silly an employee or anybody. You have to convince, you have to take a backlash, or somebody will shout on you, or many things. You go through it. If it goes through it, as you're saying, it gets built. And after that cycle is complete, after a few years, you will have that another sets of get
Those
that
5 days.
satisfaction.
Those 5 days.
Those
And
I
I
extended
think-
the 5 days after
Yeah.
5 years.
And for that, I think our for us that what's worked is the fact that we can always come back to at least the 3 of us, sulk, cry, whatever, and like, ठीक है तू एक दिन छुट्टी ले ले, but come back
Come
day
back
after.
tomorrow.
Yeah, but
If you're like,
I thought it is going to happen.
Yeah.
It is going to frustrate you at one point. And end of the day, it's the end of the day. Next day is the same thing
Yeah.
again. Let's start. There is nothing, and there are frustrating days. We
Yeah,
have
yeah,
seen
many.
so many projects closing down, so
Yeah.
much work done, and nobody agrees on it and it closed down.
Yeah.
Then you move on to the next one. So that's the benefit of probably having different kinds of different scales of work. So it keeps fluctuating. And I think
So
having
I
a
have
small
Just on that note, because you talked about it quite a lot right now, but any new urban designer or architect who wants to join a firm who does a lot of this kind of work, what are the 3 qualities that you think that person should have for sure? You mentioned it, but I want it to be more direct. Like, what are those 3 qualities that the person
urban
has to-
designers must have.
Yeah, so one thing is that if you're an urban designer, believe that you're going to do urban design. You have to start focusing on you're going to do urban design and not digress yourself in the beginning that I want to do this also, I want to do that also. Focus on okay, this is what you're supposed to do because urban design is a full-fledged, full-time, or maybe overtime
Full-time job,
profession. Overtime
No
profession.
overtime,
Yeah,
full-time.
Full-time profession. And lot of patience, as we were talking about. You have to have a lot of patience to convince yourself to okay, this is going to go longer. Have patience, but also push the whole thing forward. You can't just lay it back. Patience है तभी चलो 5 years निकल जाएंगे तो भी चलेगा. No, not like that. Patience to be consistent about what you're doing and continue pushing it. So having a patience and sticking to if you're asking that somebody joining a practice or yours or mine, be here for some time, gain that insights how things gets done from start to the end, and once you have some way of dealing with this thing. So that's the first I think job, having a patience. Top most important aspects of that. If you don't have that patience and you're going to jump around and change your strategies or thinking or your hobbies, then you'll be everywhere, but you won't find that satisfaction as an urban designer, I would say. Then, of course, urban design in the school and the beginning, it's a broad spectrum. More grounded you are. Bringing the top idea is one thing, but building it through is a very, very technical job, and one must find joy in doing so. Not only grand ideas and colorful drawings, but building, making a black drawings, detailing, specifications, sites, heat on the ground because urban design is always out there and no building shades available. So I think that ultimately, once you made up your mind, if you're up for it, then you will go a long way. So that's the second. Then of course your integrity as an urban designer. Your responsibility, like as an architect, your responsibility that building functions well. You worry about electricity, AC, many things, right? Fire. As an urban designer, you have to worry about good practices. How do you think about landscape or trees? Yeah, third is, I think, as an urban designer, as you go along, you tend to shut down a lot of your senses because you are in that context, you have to deliver. You always step back a bit and make sure that your core remains aligned. You're an urban designer, so you worry about everything. You worry about people, you worry about landscape, you worry about trees, you worry about the construction quality, you worry about how to convince people the right method, and you can't be arrogant about it. So being there all the time, whatever is needed for. So that whole alignment of as an urban designer, you keep always step back and see if this overall picture working or not. Because you tend to compartmentalize as you go along. And you realize कि यार detailing तो अच्छा कर दिया लेकिन overall gel नहीं हो रहा है तो how you see it doesn't make
step
sense.
back and see
Step
the
back,
larger
keep
picture.
stepping back. I remember as a young Vimal used to tell me all the time, though in an architecture, even you are designing a staircase or a toilet, जैसे कि बाहर थोड़ा you go up and then see if the overall is gelling or
Working.
not. So in the urban design, either you are sketching or you are doing a master plan strategy or you are detailing out something. You always zoom out every single time and say if everything else is matching with the larger objective.
True.
So that's the whole idea. Either is a quality of material or color combinations or anything, proportions, space planning. So all of that. So that
I had a professor who said a very nice thing back in the day, which has stayed with me. He said, as urban designer, the least that you can do is know everything. So
that's true.
that as a statement has stuck with me for so long, because then everything becomes your business. Knowing every aspect of the project, saying that are the trees growing or not, like you said.
It's your responsibility.
It's your responsibility.
But that's it's the same thing with architects, right? So these whole professions are connected. Ultimately, as a consultant, as an expert, if something is not working, either you pick up a rocket or a mobile phone. But if as a product, whole thing is not working, it's your responsibility.
But
you can't say कि battery का मेरा काम नहीं था, battery का काम नहीं था, things like that.
But as an architect, there's this profession in US at least, or in other areas where it is about the site and how I respond to the site and everything. Over here, as an urban designer, you have to be involved with everything. Why it resonated with me so much was because it also talks about what is the politics of it, what is
finance
the administration of it, what is the finance of it, what is how is it? It's all your business. So it's not like you can say I don't like politics and I'm going to be an urban designer.
Yeah, you don't need to be politicians to do that.
Yeah.
The whole idea is to
understand the nuances of it.
Nuances. What's the take on it? What's in it for me to push this forward as a consultant, as a profession, I would say. So there will be, because urban design is ultimately for the cities, and cities are governed by the politicians and the local body. You must know how to work with the corporations.
No, if you understand,
the planning departments, and there will be differences, but you have to figure it out. Being in your domain, tell the truth, be transparent about it. This is the right thing, but if you don't agree, we will do this also, because there is always a plan B for anything.
Yeah.
And it's not given, right? It's not given. I am glad okay, this is how it has to be. This place can be like this also. So it's sometimes somebody telling us, which is not, I would say, expert, might change our perspective of what we have thought about it. So we take that very seriously. So when somebody points out something, we at least think about it. Is it okay or not? But then we take a decision. Maybe we change it, we don't change it. But yeah, there will be instances every single time. People would say.
Nice. I think before we end, today we are introducing StudioPOD's rapid fire round. We are going to ask you 10. You are the first guest
to be experimental on this.
Let's say it's like the 2025 thing.
The 2025 introduction.
Don't ask me facts and figures.
No, they're very nice mostly, but you have to answer without thinking. You have to be like quick, okay? Ready?
And do you have your hamper?
I don't have any. You can take one of the
I thought you said your current viewers.
No, I said you are the celebrity, so why not we have...
We are in the same boat.
Yes, so I think, okay, ready? So your go-to street food after a long urban design site visit?
Sandwich.
One urban design jargon you secretly hate but use? No.
Integration.
Okay, if you had to rename urban design to something cooler, it would be?
Public space design?
One
cooler actually.
Okay, one city in the world you think is overrated in urban design?
Paris.
What's a design pet peeve that instantly annoys you?
I can't answer that.
Right. Okay, if you could teleport to any city right now, where would you go?
I would go to Vienna or Prague, 2 cities.
What's more challenging, designing for a politician or designing for the public?
Politician.
One urban designer, one thing urban designers should stop doing immediately.
Fantasizing.
You have 24 hours to fix one problem in Indian cities. What do you fix?
Streets.
If HCP had a theme song, what would it be?
Theme song.
Like if there was an opening, and what song would play?
That Lagan movie ka that the song, na? Chale Chalo wala.
Chale
Chalo.
I think that applies to us because we're never stopping. We karte rahenge.
Nice.
We keep on playing Ye Lakshya Hai Tera.
Yeah.
That's also, I think I would say both of them. But I think
Yeah, I keep playing Under Pressure actually.
the Chale Chalo is because it's a
Group huddle
Group
song.
Chale
Yeah.
Chalo.
people have, that guy has collected people will not like-minded, but they still manage to form a team out of it.
Nice.
And we are like that.
Very nice.
What's harder, convincing a city planner or convincing a contractor?
City planner.
Nice. Those are our questions.
Yay, did very well. Thanks a lot, Niki, for coming here. This was a wonderful
Yeah.
hour spent with you.
We've been constantly chatting since you come here, I think, for lunch. And so it's been lovely to...
Yeah. That was whole podcast only, I would say.
Yeah.
And thanks for having me here. I think it's one of my first podcasts.
Yay.
I'm hoping to do more now with these guys.
Good.
Great.
One of the things which we saw that postcards with you guys, right? So professions like this, in architecture or design or anything, will also bring so many other finer nuances of what you can do with the life or with the profession. That's not directly related to what you're doing as a key professions, but that's a byproduct, right?
Yeah.
Either a good graphic design, somebody is writing a poetry, or somebody is making a good something, or a photography or anything. So there are a lot of things you imbibe as you progress as an individual, and that also are all your
Yeah.
kind of
all things.
fruits of your
Yeah.
efforts. I would say you keep doing your main job, but these are all your part of your brain keeps running, and then you can get a satisfaction doing those things also. So
Yeah.
it's not only the rigor part or the consistently of what you're doing the mainstream. That's going to be there.
There's a
Yeah,
little
I think-
fun. There's
I
a
think
little
this-
fun. There's
yeah,
a
we
little
always-
joy.
We're always in
yeah.
the studio, so we might as well have fun.
Yeah.
We love having conversations, and I think these are moments that are those little happy things in whatever.
And
According to Sarfraz, only 6 days of a year. So I
Precisely.
think there are many more.
Slightly more.
We have this habit of I still do with a pencil, sketch, pen and paper. So that's where all things get done. So we have this design table where we sit and make sure we sketch it. Either it's a very fast way of sketching it, or sometimes I sit for 2 hours and really think about through the problem and sketch out many things as an individual. These are also finer moments
Yeah.
of that thing here. Now I have kind of have an overview of the situation. I might not have cracked it, but that once you start thinking from, as you're saying, there are too many things one has to think about it. People movement, traffic movement, or the person who's going to clean something or shoot anything. That is eventually keeps running.
Also gratifying.
And the
Nice.
Rewarding.
gratifying.
Yeah, those are
Yeah,
little,
it keeps us human.
You
many rewards that we
many
get.
rewards, yeah. Sometimes you crack it, sometimes you don't, but that's the whole process.
Nice. All right.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you guys.
Thank you
so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, this was excellent.
Thank
Great.
you.